Angie Dickinson named 7 most damned actors. Angie Dickinson was born Angeline Brown on September 30, 1931, in Colm, North Dakota. She is one of Hollywood's most captivating and enduring actresses, a woman whose beauty, talent, and determination helped her carve a remarkable path through decades of entertainment history. She grew up in a modest household, the second of 3 daughters of Frederica and Leo Henry Brown, a newspaper publisher and editor. When she was a child, her family relocated to Burbank, California, in search of new opportunities. This move proved to be life-changing, for it placed young Angie right at the heart of the American entertainment industry during its golden age. While her early life was marked by traditional values and small-town discipline, her natural charisma, intelligence, and self-confidence hinted at the bright future that awaited her. Prior to being discovered, Angie Dickinson did not plan on being a star. She attended Immaculate Heart College in Los Angeles, graduating with a business degree, and then started her career working as a secretary. Fate took over when she entered a local beauty contest, the Miss America Preliminary for Burbank, and won. This not only gave her public exposure, but also brought her into contact with people in the entertainment industry who recognized a rare combination of glamour and poise. Within several years, she started making little television appearances throughout the 1950s, and soon some producers would recognize her screen presence. Her early anthology drama appearances in Western series, such as Death Valley Days and The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp, very quickly revealed that here was a dramatic and alluring performer. Her big break came in 1959 when she starred opposite John Wayne and Dean Martin in the Western classic Rio Bravo, directed by Howard Hawks. As Feathers, a strong-willed, witty saloon girl, Dickinson could hold her own against 2 of Hollywood's most dominant male stars, leaving an indelible imprint on audiences and critics alike. Her performance was not about beauty alone, as it showed independence, courage, and intelligence at a time when few actresses were granted such depth in roles in Western films. Rio Bravo launched her into stardom and set the seal on her as a versatile actress who could hold her own in action-packed, as well as emotional performances. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, Angie Dickinson built arguably one of the most impressive resumes in Hollywood. Working within a number of genres from the crime thrillers Point Blank, 1967, and The Killers, 1964, through to romantic drama and comedy, she was a favored leading lady for some of the biggest male stars of the era, including Frank Sinatra, Burt Lancaster, and Lee Marvin. She gained particular recognition for the sophisticated charm she brought to her roles, imbuing strength into conventionally feminine characters, a factor distinguishing her from many of her contemporaries. Off-screen, she developed close friendships with members of Hollywood's elite, most notably the Rat Pack, becoming a fixture of the glamorous, fast-paced world they represented. In 1974, Dickinson took on what would become the most defining role of her career, Sergeant Suzanne Pepper Anderson in the groundbreaking NBC television series Policewoman. As one of the first female police detectives to be portrayed in a primetime drama, Dickinson broke barriers for women in television. The show was a critical and commercial success, running for 4 seasons and earning Dickinson a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Television Drama in 1975. Her portrayal of Pepper Anderson not only showed her dramatic skills, but also became a symbol of empowerment for women at a time when feminist movements were reshaping American culture. Many female law enforcement officers later credited Dickinson's character with inspiring them into careers in policing. Even following Policewoman, Angie Dickinson continued to work steadily in film and television, adapting to the rapidly changing entertainment landscape with elegance. She appeared in such films as Dressed to Kill 1980, directed by Brian De Palma, in which she played a sexually complex, daring role that showed she still had a readiness to defy expectations in later career life. Her versatility continued through the 1980s and 1990s with roles in miniseries, dramas, and guest appearances, showing her continued professional commitment and appeal. In 2001, she made a nostalgic cameo in Ocean's 11, a remake of the 1960 classic in which she had starred, alongside her old friends Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, delighting fans with her connection to Hollywood's golden past. Angie Dickinson's romantic life has long been a subject of public fascination, not only because of her glamorous beauty and fame, but also because of the influential and talented men she shared her life with. Her marriages reflected two very different chapters of her personal journey, one marking her early years of ambition and self-discovery, and the other coinciding with the height of her fame and emotional complexity. Her first marriage was to Gene Dickinson, whom she married in 1952. Gene was a former college football player and businessman who provided stability during Angie's early career struggles in Hollywood. The union came at a time when Angie was still finding her footing as a young actress, working her way through minor television roles and bit parts in films. Even though this marriage lasted 8 years, it was a relationship often tested by the demands of Angie's burgeoning career and the fast pace of show business. Gene was said to have been supportive of her ambitions, but the differences of their worlds, his life in business and her growing fame in entertainment, gradually pulled them apart. Yet, it is from that marriage that Angie took her profession. Al's surname, Dickinson, a name she decided to keep well after their divorce in 1960, and which would later become synonymous with her identity as one of Hollywood's most alluring and confident actresses. 5 years later, in 1965, Angie Dickinson entered what would become one of the most talked-about marriages in Hollywood, her union with celebrated composer, songwriter, and music legend Burt Bacharach. Their relationship was glamorous, creative, and deeply emotional, but highly complex. Bacharach was at the height of his career, penning timeless hits for artists like Dionne Warwick, Dusty Springfield, and Tom Jones. Angie, by then, was an established actress known for her intelligence and sex appeal with roles in hit films like Rio Bravo and Ocean's 11. The pair quickly became one of Hollywood's golden couples, admired for their sophistication and artistic success. But beneath the public image of elegance and romance, their marriage was marked by periods of loneliness, artistic tension, and personal tragedy. The couple had one premature-born daughter, Leah Nikki Bacharach, in 1966. Nikki struggled with chronic health problems and later with Asperger's syndrome. She was the emotional center of their marriage. Angie Dickinson often described her daughter as both her greatest joy and her greatest challenge. The demands of Burt's career, which took him globetrotting, left Angie to bear much of the load as far as child-rearing was concerned. In later interviews, she spoke candidly about the emotional gap that developed between her and Burt over time, even as their affection did not waver. Their marriage legally ended in 1981 after 16 years, a painful end to their union that proved particularly difficult for both parties. Even after their divorce, Angie Dickinson continued to speak of Burt Bacharach with great respect and lingering affection. Angie Dickinson, when speaking about Bacharach, once called him a musical genius unlike anyone else, and noted that living with such brilliance was never easy. Bacharach, in turn, praised Angie's grace and intelligence on many occasions, further admitting that the relationship and eventual breakup between him and Angie was one of mutual influence, if not ultimate success. At Nikki's death in 2007, he and Angie shared the sadness as private individuals, and Angie rarely ever spoke of it except in terms of how much she still loves her child. In the long and storied career of Angie Dickinson, a woman who worked with some of Hollywood's most legendary figures, she saw brilliance, ego, heartbreak, and extraordinary human behavior. Known for her honesty and razor-sharp insight, Dickinson has never been afraid to speak candidly about the people she shared the screen with. In a rare and unfiltered conversation, she revealed what she called the 7 most damned actors, a phrase she used not in bitterness, but in fascination for those whose immense talent was often matched by personal demons, troubled tempers, or tragic contradictions. Hollywood was never a place for saints, she once reflected. It was a place where beautiful devils wore charm like perfume. The first name she mentioned was Marlon Brando, whom she called a man of genius and destruction rolled into one. Dickinson admired his acting more than almost anyone's, yet she confessed that Brando was damned by his own brilliance. He could never find peace inside himself. She remembered working around him at the height of his fame and said she saw a man adored and alienated by the world. He wanted truth in a business built on lies, she said softly. That was his tragedy. To Dickinson, Brando represented the ultimate paradox, an artist whose sensitivity made him great, but also broke him from within. Next came Steve McQueen, another icon she labeled as damned by the chase for control. Angie had a peculiar fondness for McQueen's rough charm, but she couldn't ignore the self-destructive fire that burned in him. Steve was always running from studios, from love from himself, she said. He could be so magnetic and so cold in the same breath. Dickinson explained that behind his legendary cool exterior was a restless spirit who never trusted happiness. He was beautiful to look at, she added, but there was a sadness he couldn't outrun. She then brought up Burt Reynolds, a close friend and frequent co-star whom she adored, but also pitted. Burt was damned by pride, she said. He wanted to be loved, but he couldn't admit it. Dickinson remembered him as a man who cloaked his vulnerabilities behind laughter and swagger, the kind of man who'd light up a room, but, when the laughter died, would be the loneliest one there. She lamented that his career, though filled with hits, was shadowed by what she called Hollywood's cruel appetite for youth and ego. The fourth on her list was Montgomery Clift, whom Dickinson never worked with directly, but admired from afar. He was one of the most beautiful men I ever saw on screen, she said, but his soul was at war with itself. Angie had often heard stories about Clift's kindness and torment, his brilliance and his pain. He was damned by the world's inability to accept who he really was, she noted thoughtfully. That's the kind of damnation Hollywood gives its most sensitive souls. Dickinson also spoke about Richard Burton, calling him damned by love. She described his romance with Elizabeth Taylor as one of the most intoxicating and tragic in film history. Richard could recite Shakespeare like it was his own heartbeat, she said, but his heart belonged to a storm named Elizabeth. They burned each other alive with passion. Dickinson admired their talent, but pitted their turmoil. He was damned not because he was evil, she reflected, but because love became his addiction. Her sixth choice was James Dean, whom she described as damned by youth. Angie never met Dean, but she felt his energy everywhere in Hollywood, even years after his death. He was the ghost that never left, she said. He represented everything young actors dreamed of being and feared becoming. She admired his talent and charisma, but saw in his short life a haunting warning about fame's seductive curse. He lived fast, she said wistfully, but his shadow lasted forever. Finally, Dickinson named Robert Mitchum, a man she called damned by his defiance. They had worked together early in her career, and she never forgot his confidence or his contempt for Hollywood authority. Bob didn't care what the studio wanted, she said with a smile. He played by his own rules, and that scared people. Dickinson described Mitchum as a rebel with dignity, a man who refused to be tamed. He wasn't damned by weakness, she clarified. He was damned because he refused to bow. After naming the seven, Dickinson sat in silence for a moment, and then said, "I don't say damned as an insult. I say it as a truth." These men were extraordinary, yet they were cursed with being too human in a business that doesn't forgive humanity. To her, each one of these actors epitomized the bittersweet essence of old Hollywood, the glamour and the pain, the fame and the fall. They were the brightest stars, she finally said, and the brightest stars always burn out too soon. In her own gentle way, Angie Dickinson did not damn them, but paid homage to them. Her words were of understanding, not scandal, insight only a woman who had survived the golden age of cinema could provide. We were all damned in a way, she concluded with a bittersweet smile, but that's what made us real.